Alright guys, welcome back to Tucked In Wizards. My name is Aidan and I'm here with Ben.
Yeah, welcome back guys. Adam Silver kept taking down our highlights, so we gotta go on camera now.
Yes sir.
It's been a while since we last recorded, 2 weeks, and since the last video, the Wizards have still not won a game. So we're 9 games in. Really only one close one was the Spurs game. Jordan Poole had a really good game, but there's some building blocks that we've seen.
Yeah, like Keyshawn 20-point game here, Sarr 20-point game there. Flashes of offense for Sarr, flashes of defense for Bub. Like we've been seeing stuff develop. It's still so early in the season. It's really hard to say what these players are going to be consistently going forward.
Exactly.
But at least to start, we've been seeing good things. So you love to see it.
Yeah, and like we said, we've been kind of saying since the offseason, this is a building block year for the Wizards. We're gonna have to take as many moral victories as possible because there won't be many actual victories. This team is bad, when you look at it on paper, it's not great. I mean, there's 3 rookies. We were starting all 3 of them at one point, and then a sophomore, and then Kuzma and Poole.
Yeah,
4th options, 5th options on other teams. But there has, like we said, there's been bright spots. Poole has looked so much better this year than last year. He looks more like 2022 Warriors Poole than he looks like the other 2 years. So huge positive. His playmaking has taken a huge jump. Kuz is getting kind of back into it. Bilal looks like he has some star potential. Alex Sarr looks like he has all defense potential. And then Keyshawn and Bub, we're still kind of feeling out, but they both look pretty good to start the season.
Yeah, for sure. My main thing that I've really been liking, I talked about it a lot. We were really, really high on Bilal for the first 4 games. He had an amazing start to the season. Now that Kuz is back, it's he's been taking a seat back. He's missed the last game or 2 with the injuries and hasn't really looked as good as he did to start. But the defense is there, and what I mean by not as good to start is he's scoring 15 points on 8 shots. So I'm completely fine with that. I just want to see him take a bit more shots with Kuzma around. That kind of fixed itself last game. Kuzma took, I don't know, 10, 11 shots. And
he's been a lot better. He's been more efficient.
Bub took 16, so he's been sharing a lot more, which is, what you want to see out of this year. It's kind of a wash for the young guys, and we're probably going to end up trading him. So
who, Kuzma?
Yeah, probably. If not this year, then next.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because we were talking earlier, maybe even last video, but how many young players on the Wizards have we seen who've actually averaged what Bilal is doing right now? He's averaging 14.8 points, which doesn't seem like a lot. It actually seems not great, but they haven't had that. This is the most by a young Wizards player in a while.
Yeah, and honestly, that stat line for a sophomore is not bad at all. No. If you look at his class, there's a lot of people who are struggling to put it together. Obviously not Wemby, but I haven't heard about the Thompson twins in a long time.
Amen Thompson is really good. Asar is not so much.
Yeah, he is. And Brandon Miller's been really good for Charlotte, but we were picking a little later than there, so obviously the top in a draft like that is going to be doing well. So it's good to see a guy around 8 or 9 really picking it up like this.
Yeah, this draft I think is going to live up to the hype because Wemby, Miller, Amen, Anthony Black has started looking good for the Magic.
Yep.
Jarris Walker is finally playing for Indiana. So
I just wanted to pull up. I'm comparing Bilal Coulibaly year 2 versus Rui Hachimura year 2 because he was the last guy who I felt was more polished at this point than a lot of our younger guys. Denny was really rough at this point.
Yeah.
I won't even talk about Johnny Davis because he's still at that point. But Bilal to start right now with him kind of dipping a little bit from his start of the season. He's averaging 15 points, 2.6 assists, and 5.8 rebounds, which is pretty solid. And then Rui was averaging 13.8 points, 1 assist, and 5 rebounds. So slightly better than Rui. And you were really impressed with Rui at this point.
And it's important to note too is Bilal's 20. Rui was 22 at the time, and Bilal is guarding the best player every night. So it's a huge difference in my opinion.
And Rui got the opportunity to play off ball around Bradley Beal, so he just had a lot of more open shots. Yep. Where Bilal's playing a lot more I gotta save this possession, let me drive into 4 people and try and dunk it.
Yeah.
And he does it more often than not. So
he's got a good pull-up mid-range. Him and Bub both have a very nice mid-range that you could see might if they could get to those spots, if they could start getting to those spots consistently, they can put up a lot of points.
Yeah, that bub elbow long jumper looks so good.
Yeah. The problem is
every single time.
Not to cut you off. I don't. You gonna say something else?
No, that was it.
Oh, is their offense is fine. It's on the defensive side that has been the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And this has been the biggest problem for the Wizards for years.
Yes.
Again, young team, they're going to make rotational mistakes. They're going to make positional mistakes. But I would like to see us not be last in defense this year, but probably not going to happen.
It's also kind of a weird year where a lot of teams are kind of trying, where obviously the Wizards aren't trying to win, but like in the East, there's not that many openly tanking teams to start. The Raptors, the most ethical tank, as people say on social media. They're losing games, but it's like they're winning. Like they're ahead of us. They look way better than us. The Jazz are trying to lose games, but also they're like staying in against the Clippers. Like we're the only team that seems to be really openly tanking right now, which puts us in a good position, but also makes us look especially bad. Because it's like, look at Brooklyn, they're overperforming what everyone thought, and now look at Washington and they're 2-11. But at least we're not Philly. I'll say that. I would rather be 2-11 in our situation than 2-11 with Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean the Sixers we could talk about a whole nother story. I think it's a combination of the West being really, really good, so you have every team pretty much out there trying to compete, and even Portland has been pretty good to start the season, and then combined with the East being really, really bad, so you have kind of bad teams that are like, wait, we could make the playoffs, we can make top 6 in the East. So bad to the point where, like, did you see that article? I think it was Zach Lowe, it might have been Zach Lowe, where he was like, West owners are literally complaining about how bad the Eastern Conference is, and like when Vegas and Seattle comes into the league, there's going to be a lot of West owners lobbying to move East, which is really funny.
Just quick, like 30 seconds. Who would be the most likely West team to go East in your opinion?
I think there's only 3 contenders. There's Memphis, because they're basically on the East Coast anyway.
They're Tennessee.
Yeah. There's Minnesota. And there's New Orleans. Those are the only 3 I think could realistically make the move.
I agree.
Anyone else, and you're just kind of like, what are we doing?
It just doesn't make sense.
I think Memphis is most likely.
In my opinion, New Orleans is most likely, because why is New Orleans a West team? They're like literally like almost on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. If we're doing, I know that's what our friend would want, is a Pelicans fan.
Yes.
Like bad.
Although with the way the Pelicans look, I'm not sure they'd be going too far in the East either.
No, but farther than the West. I think Memphis, they're the most Eastern team. It makes the most sense. And they're coming from Vancouver to Memphis, so they kind of West by default because they were in Vancouver, but now they could actually be in the East. But weirdly, I feel like Tennessee teams are in the West. That just might be because there's a lot of big cities in the East.
I think that's the main thing, is if you look at the population centers on the East, it's like, okay, well, we have all these East Coast teams. Now every team not on the East Coast is in the West because there's just not enough cities in the West. Especially when they were making these leagues.
Yeah.
But don't let me get into my history.
Yeah, we're getting a little sidetracked. Bro, let's talk about the Spurs game, because that was the most fun game of the year, I would say so far. Yeah. But fun loss of the year, I guess, because I had fun during those Hawks games. But
it was really fun watching Poole duel Wemby, and like honestly, every time I get to watch Wemby, it's amazing. Put up the first 50-point game the Spurs have had since like 2001,
and the first 50-point game of the year, which was then immediately matched by Giannis in literally the next game.
And then like a bunch of other people, like Giannis, and then like
someone had a 60. Oh no, Paolo had a 60-point game earlier this year.
Paolo, I think he had 60.
So that was the first one. But yeah, Wemby looks amazing. He hit 8 threes. We were watching, like, this is just Steph Curry, who's 7'3", so you can't actually contest him. He was cooking Valanciunas. Drew Gooden was like really into Valanciunas this game. And like he did have a pretty good game. He had 16 points, and he was bullying Wemby on the glass, but he could not guard him.
Drew Gooden's been cracking me up recently. Like, when Keyshawn was like having a kind of a bad game, Chris Miller was like, "Oh, well, it's too bad Keyshawn's having a bad game, but you know, love his development, and we'll see him later in the season for sure." And Drew Gooden goes, "Yeah, he's going to be a key contributor come playoff time." Playoff time?
Playoffs?
The Wizards? What are you talking about?
Drew, we haven't won a game in 2 weeks.
And then against the Hawks, Clint Capella got the ball like, in the block, and he's like dribbling, and Drew Gooden goes, "Foul, foul, foul, foul him now, foul, foul," and then they just steal the ball from him anyway. Yeah. Chris Miller's like, "Or just strip it," and he's like, "I guess that works too." It's like, why are you? I'm so scared of Clint Capella, man.
It's like he's some dominant force down low on the Hawks, which is so funny. And he also, Valanciunas was like one of the fastest Wizards to a double-double. Mm-hmm. He did in the first quarter of the Spurs game, I think. And they're like, Chris Miller's like, I wonder what other like Wizards players are fast to this, and Drew Gooden just goes like, I think I'm in the mix. Which I thought was so funny. But yeah, Drew Gooden has been hilarious this year, which is really nice to see because the first couple of years he was kind of like reserved a little bit, but he's coming to his own. Yeah. I really like listening to that duo.
Me too. I mean, it was rough with Kuchar because like Drew Gooden, you could tell he didn't really want to say anything because then he didn't want his voice to be attached to the fucking guy in the clip that would go, "The Wizraeli, Konnichiwa," and all this weird shit. And now like people kind of saw like when likes were public on Twitter, like he's liking some really weird stuff. It just kind of seemed like a weird guy. But I'll give him credit for figuring out the Ben Simmons thing, the hack-a-Ben. He was the first guy to advocate for that. But it's nice having Chris Miller now. They have a nice chemistry together. Chris Miller like is friends with some of the guys on the team, so he'll talk about like, "Oh, Bub was telling me this yesterday when Beal was around." He's like, "Me and Brad were talking." Yeah, it's always nice to have that perspective.
And I also think they have I think they're one of the better duos in the league. Maybe that's biased just because we listen to them all the time, but
I don't know. It's not very hard. It's very hard to be worse than the Sixers or Warriors guys. They've definitely got
and the
two
Hawks.
of them.
Don't forget the Hawks.
Yeah,
the Hawks are sneaky bad.
They're so annoying.
And it's not like they're bad. They're just like, I think what makes commentators bad is when they get really salty about the game.
Yes, for sure.
And like, we see that a lot with the Warriors Hawks guys. Not so much with the Sixers guys. I actually think the Sixers guys are okay. I think they just are so biased to the point where it's like, I get it's the local broadcast, but yeah.
I just remember the Sixers guys like cheering on injuries and stuff.
That was wild. Yeah, I remember that happening.
Plus, it's just they get so salty. It's one of those things where if the Sixers are playing bad, they start shitting on the other team, and like even if the other team's up, they'll start like criticizing things, and it's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, yeah, it's really annoying. And then they get glazed and beat all day. And shit, so.
It happens. We're getting way off track. The Spurs game. Yeah. What I want to say about Sarr. Sarr had 12 points this game. He was 6 for 14 from the field, which sounds bad, but he was also 0 for 5 from 3. So if you take away those threes, he actually had an efficient game in the paint, which he has not had like usually this year. So like bright spots. And then I think he had a 20-point game against the Hawks the next game, and then he kind of went back to bad against the Pistons and the Knicks. But bright spots again. It's all about bright spots.
What was encouraging for me about the game after the Hawks game was that like you saw him play and succeed in one way in the Spurs game where he was very defensive and in the paint and like really battling Wemby, and then against the Hawks he didn't have to do that, so you saw the other side of what he can do where he hit 3 for 4 and from 3, 7 for 13 isn't like amazing, but on a 20-point game for a rookie I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
And the defense still looked good. Obviously he's not going to be 75% from 3 the whole year, but the fact that he can do it for some games here and there means that, the baseline is there. So if he decides to work on the 3, he has a nice start. And like he has something to work off of. And the shot looks good. It just sometimes doesn't fall.
Exactly, yeah. And his defense it has been obviously great. It hasn't been that great these last 2 games. He's been kind of getting... players are seeming to figure out how to go over him, I guess, which is something he needs to work on because he only got 1 block in his last 2 games, which, if we've watched him the whole year, is kind of actually rare.
Yeah, but he's also facing, like, he struggles against physical guys like Duran,
Duran and
so it makes sense
Cat,
that Duran kind of abused him, and the Cat is Cat. Like, and when you go up a guy against Cat, like
the Cat even plays.
Wemby's really good, but Cat is like a veteran guy, so he knows all these moves that'll get fouls and get Sar out of the way.
And Brunson's so
that
crafty.
Wemby doesn't quite know yet. Exactly, and Brunson can just feed him.
The Knicks have also. Walt Frazier was talking about this on the road. The Knicks have had the Wizards number for years. Not years, but since they've been like good in that Randall era.
Yeah.
They've had the Wizards number, and last year was especially bad. I remember watching them against the Knicks, and they like couldn't even get past the 3-point line at all. Like nobody could.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you were complaining against in the Knicks game. You were saying this year is so much worse than last year.
I mean, I still think it was, but
I think both years are dog shit.
Also,
it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough.
So the veterans like Jonas Valanciunas, Malcolm Brogdon. What are we thinking about those guys? Because Val, I think, has actually looked pretty good. I think he'll have some good trade value, and Brogdon is still kind of figuring it out a little bit. He only had 1 assist last game. Again, it was a bad game last game, so it's hard to take anything with you got to take everything with a grain of salt because they got blown out and nobody really looked good except Bub. But what do you think?
I mean, last game definitely looked like playing a contender. But I've really enjoyed what Val's brought to this team. It's been pretty much exactly what I expected. He's just rebounding. Yep. He's putting back misses. He's just cleaning the glass. But we've said we haven't had a big man like that since Courtois. It's been a long time. So having a guy that can do that is really valuable. I think it's been really good for Sar to see like, oh, he's standing here and sealing him out like this so he can get the rebound and put it back. Maybe I can do that. And his rebounding numbers haven't been amazing, Sar, to start, but it's improved from what we saw from Summer League preseason. So I think it is working. And then Brogdon is like, I don't really have much to say about him. He's played 2 games, maybe, if not 1. He just looks like a guy coming back from injury. It's one of those things where he's old enough where it might just be, that might be it. So we'll see if he can make a comeback, but I could tell against New York, he looked a little more comfortable in some points than others.
Yeah, and Brogdon,
I think
he's a veteran guy. He will figure it out. He will figure out the offense. One thing I am surprised, though, is that Jared Butler hasn't really been in the rotation. I know, like that sounds crazy coming from any other fan's perspective, but I don't know. Jared Butler, I feel like he has some potential as like a game manager type point guard, and it's kind of weird that he's just been completely out of the rotation. He's looked good, obviously, in garbage time, but not everyone has looked good in garbage time. So, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like I know Brogdon just came back, but it was kind of weird he wasn't getting any minutes even before that.
I think the problem with Jared Butler to me is that you already have. I mean, Jordan Poole's starting. He's playing 30 minutes a game for sure. And then you have Bub, who's also starting, but I feel like they keep Bub on a lot when Poole's off, so he can handle. So then you're already behind 2 guys, including a rookie who you want to give all the extra minutes to anyway. And then you bring in Brogdon, and he wasn't playing much before Brogdon, but now with Brogdon, it's like,
with Brogdon it makes sense.
You're never cracking that rotation, and even without this is one of those situations where to me is like, oh, he hasn't shown anything in practice because he's not getting playtime. Otherwise, he'd get some playtime.
That's kind of what I'm...
he must be having terrible scrimmages in practices.
I mean, the Wizards, they're running an 8-man rotation, now 9 with Brogdon back. So, I mean, there's room. But like you said, you want to get the rookie a lot of minutes. Kispert is getting a lot of minutes. Obviously, they want to get his trade value up. But also, they just want to get him back on track shooting the ball because... he had kind of a rough start to the season. He is definitely turning around his shooting, which is nice.
Yes. And if we just look at minutes from last game, Bub 32, Sar 24, Keyshawn 25. And this is a blowout where, those numbers are kind of lower because they're getting pulled for almost the whole fourth quarter. And, those are the highest minutes on the team besides Corey Kispert. And Jordan Poole, of course. Both guys who we want to, show off what they can do.
And even Kuzma. I mean, Kuzma is still one of the better players on the team, so you want to give him minutes too. You want to at least pretend you're trying to win.
He had 24, which is in line with those, and then Brogdon had 19. And that's exactly what I want to see. Valanciunas had 18. You give the vets a few minutes, let them give the young guys some rest, show them what to do, and then they sit, the young guys take over.
Yeah. And that's what we see. But I'm still surprised. Jared Butler had a good garbage time game. He had 4 assists in 5 minutes. Again, garbage time. You're going against, who are you even going against? Like
Then
Tyler Kolek and Matt Ryan. So it's not like that crazy. But I don't know. I would like to see him get some run at point guard. And see Bub maybe come off the ball and play off the ball a little bit.
Yeah, the thing they're doing right now with they're starting Bub, Brogdon, and Poole though, so they are getting Bub off the ball a lot.
Yeah,
so it's like
the Scott Brooks lineup, except they could actually all shoot.
Yeah, but it's the Scott Brooks lineup, but they can all shoot and defend besides Brogdon and Poole. So
Poole's has had, I think, his best defensive season to date, which means very little. We're talking about Jordan Poole. But
is he still leading the league?
No, his steal numbers have fallen off. But he's still averaging 2 steals a game. And he's not a cone in these first
He's
games.
Top 5 in steals still. It's Dyson Daniels, of course. Jalen Williams makes sense.
Dyson Daniels might win.
And then Jordan Poole.
He might win Defensive Player of the Year the way he's doing it.
He should, yeah. Or, no, he should win MIP. Because
MIP, too,
Player of the Year to Wemby. Because Wemby has 3.7 blocks a game right now.
Yeah, insane.
Fucking ridiculous.
Insane stuff.
That's more blocks than steals with the highest steal leader. And steals are easier than blocks.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Some of these other games, they got blown out by Detroit. Got blown out by Houston, Orlando. Both games were kind of over before the second half.
I don't really feel much of a need to talk too much about those games. I feel like it's just been kind of what we've been talking about.
Or about the
developing the young guys and stuff.
It's a theme in these Wizards games. There's like, it's around 10 by the second quarter, and then the third quarter starts and the other team goes on a huge run. And that's kind of in every game.
But also the theme that I've been seeing from the coaching staff this year has been intentionality. Like, last year it was just like, oh, we're just going to throw... Like, Wes Unseld didn't really know what to do when we were skidding. And, like, he was just kind of, like, sticking to his rotations and stuff. And Keefe is definitely, like, this is what I want to get out of this game for these players. Right. This is how I'm going to put them in that position to succeed, which I love to see.
Yeah, he's very
because it just simplifies things so easy. Like, it makes things so much easier. You're like, okay, I want you to get out there. I want you to take at least 5 threes. Don't care if you miss them, and I want you to play hard on defense. It's like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Brian Keefe, he might never have the roster to really show what he can do as the Wizards coach. But he seems to have the trust from the executives despite only winning 2 games, so we'll see how long they keep him on for.
Yeah. And it might be one of the situations...
He's kind of growing with the team as well.
Exactly. Like, oh, we're kind of developing this guy where even if he's not ready for a head coaching role when it comes around, when we're actually serious, we can get him in a position where he can work towards that, kind of like Joe Mazzulla. Yeah. Or it's like we're letting him build his reputation as a developer, and then he goes and he's the guy who teams call when they're like, we need a coach that we can pay some money, not a ton of money, but just some money, and you can get our guys to where they need to be.
Yeah. And then who knows? Maybe he does stick around for the long term, and he's like one of the best coaches ever. So that would be nice.
That would be great.
That would be great. You want to talk
just looking forward for the next week?
Oh yeah, let's talk about the next week.
Just real quick, we've got the Celtics coming up with the in-season tournament.
I'm going to that game. That should be fun. The Celtics need differential too, so,
yes, so
they're going to blow them out by 50
points. And then on Sunday we've got the Pacers. Looking at the Bulls on Tuesday, and then this will probably be after our next episode, but we're looking at the Clippers next Wednesday.
Yeah, so that's 4
so probably 4 losses coming up.
I think they could take one of those. I hope they can. I really don't want to match the Pistons in the longest losing streak. I also am a little worried about the process Sixers and their record. I know their record's bad, but this team is also bad.
Yeah, but also, are you tanking 30-year-old Embiid and 34-year-old Paul George's?
No. I'm talking about like when the Sixers were going through the process, their record, because they won like 9 games or whatever.
Yeah,
we do already have 2, so we have should 2 be okay. But
because the most ever is like the Bobcats, but that was the shortened season, right?
Yeah, that was the shortened season.
It was like 6 and 50 something.
Insane, by the way.
Insane. But yeah, looking forward to those games. We'll see what the young guys can do. Just moving, I want to talk a little bit around the league.
Yeah, let's talk around the league.
Exciting things going on.
Oh, I also wanted to talk about the draft class, because...
Yes, that's a good point.
We got 3 people from this draft class, and they all seem like they're pretty good. And people are going into this draft class like, this is the worst draft class ever. There's no, like, real guy or whatever. I don't really know what they're saying. But we've had... pretty much everyone in the top 10 has shown like that they could be a good rotational piece at the very least. I think the only person who hasn't really shown that is Rob Dillingham, and that's just because he hasn't gotten play time. And I still am not super sold on Cody Williams. But Zach Edey's starting. Donovan Clingan, he got like 8 blocks the other day.
Yeah.
Stephon Castle has looked fantastic. Reece Shea has looked fantastic. Obviously, as we even go down, you have Jared McCain and Dalton Connect, who could be competing for Rookie of the Year this year. Tristan Silva's starting. Ves Missy starting. Like, there's a lot of good players in this draft. And I think it was very, very quick to just say, oh, this draft class sucks. Like, I think this draft is going to be very good. I think we'll get multiple All-Stars.
Yeah. I was following a lot of draft stuff for fantasy and, just like who we want to get. So I was kind of paying attention to the narrative, and it was interesting to see, like, I kind of saw the narrative was bullshit, the popular narrative of this is a bad draft class. But then the people who knew what they were talking about were like, this is a bad draft class if you're a top 5 team or like top 5 pick, but if you're a good or team or a mid team, this is a great draft class because a lot of talent will fall. It's like, sure, some talent fell, whatever. But also I think the top of this class is a lot better than a lot of these even like really respected draft guys are expecting.
Yeah, I think 4 of these guys have all-star potential.
Yeah. Sar's shown the offense. He's top 5 in blocks still for the season. You have like guys like Reece Shea, who's exactly what Atlanta needed. Zach Edey, like you said, went like 8, 6,
9,
something like that.
Stephon Castle has looked great these last couple of games.
Amazing for San Antonio.
Besides
I haven't
this
really
last
been
game
following Reed Shepard, but he was like the leading scorer for one of those games that they were playing recently. I remember seeing like it's been a very impressive start, and we're only like 13 games in.
Yeah.
I think it was a very overblown for sure. I agree with you. And I think even more than people were expecting, there are a lot of these guys that fell, like Jared McCain, Dalton Connect, Ves Missy, that I think are
Dalton Connect falling is kind of crazy. He was projected top 10, he fell to 17. And it's like, why? We're seeing like 9 threes, like tied the rookie record, 37 points, standing ovation in LA. Like, why did he fall? I know. I think it's a problem with the that Braun thing with like teams, and they're like, oh, we can't draft him because he's too old, like he doesn't fit. And like that may be true for like a team like the Wizards that doesn't have their star yet. And obviously like nobody's in the top 5 is going to pick him, but if you're like the Blazers, I don't really see an issue with him. Obviously they traded their pick to the Wizards. If you're the Bulls, I don't see an issue with him. If you're the Grizzlies, Thunder, like all these teams that are like trying to compete and they need like a guy like that. I mean the Thunder picked a project. I don't really understand. What they were that was doing. And then
I think Presti's addicted to young players and picks.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't their whole strategy like you're going to draft a ton of busts, but one of them is going to hit.
And then they hit on a lot more, and like I think they should just be pushing their chips in the table right now, but we'll see.
We'll see how it goes for them.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
But yeah, I was pretty surprised.
I'm interested to see the long-term future of these guys because like I think it also puts a chip on your shoulder when you come in a class like that and everyone's saying it's shit and nobody in there's good, and you're like, fuck you, I'm going to prove that I am good, and I'm the reason this class is good. And
there has been people like that.
We're at a point where there's no classes that are, there's no good players in this. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah, the last one
that's ever really been a thing.
The last class that hasn't ever had an all-star was, I think, like 2000. So it's been 24 years, and every class has had an all-star.
Yeah, and we found 3 promising young guys that all look good in very different portions of the draft, and number 2, 14, and 26. So, there's good players everywhere. You guys just couldn't find them. It's the difference.
And a lot of teams did find them.
But yeah, I guess they were just way more than people expected.
Yeah. You want to talk about the cup a little bit, or sorry, last point.
I was just gonna transition over to talking about some of these teams around the league. My main thing I really want to talk about is the Philadelphia 76ers, baby. They are struggling. It's even to the point where I feel bad for hating on them a bit. I watch Embiid struggle to foul bait. He had 0. He had like 0 for 6, 8 points, all in fouls or something. He last game was his first game since 2018 where he didn't get a foul called for him. Like, he's been looking really bad.
And now he's, like, late to team meetings. And
yeah, he's getting criticized
he seems checked
in front of the whole team by Maxey. He's like... The funniest thing to me is they went, hey, Embiid, we want you to show up on time. We want you to come to practice and lead the practice and, like, be engaged. And we want you to just, like, be more consistent with your habits. And he turns around and goes... I just don't know what they want from me. Like, what are you talking about? They just told you what they wanted from you. What
that was really funny. So I was actually in a bad spot.
And that to me is from the process. Maybe I'm hating a little too much. Maybe I'm reading a little too much into it. But the process to me is like, we're going to lose. We're going to tell you we're going to lose. We want you to lose. We don't care if you win. That's not what you want to instill in your star players. You want them to go out there and be like, I don't give a shit if you guys want to lose because I'm going to win. And that's never what Embiid's been.
I mean, I think it's more what we were talking about in the offseason. They pushed all their chips into Paul George. And they like went after this ideology, like big three ideology, that we have not seen work since the Miami Heat, pretty much.
Yep.
You could argue the Warriors, but I would argue that the Warriors were just like fucked in a complete... they're just
it's like calling
ridiculous
super
big
team.
Three.
Like, Clay's not really a part of a normal big three. That's just a special circumstance,
Right. But they pushed it all, like, we're going to get these 3 big contracts, and then we'll have role players. And we've seen the Suns tried to do that. We've seen the Nets tried to do that. And we've seen the Lakers try to do that. And all 3 of those teams, like, failed miserably. And honestly, we've seen the Bucks
do that with... The Lakers tried to do that with an average age over 35, and you're like, okay, man. Like, you know this isn't gonna work. Your big 3 is Russell Westbrook, AD, and LeBron.
The Lakers go back to what won them the championship, which was, we have LeBron, we have AD, and then we find really good role players where we could have someone different be the third option every night. And they're 10-4. So
Yep.
I think that's going to be more the strategy, especially with the new CBA, is we're going to get 2 big contracts. It's kind of like what the Celtics did. And then we're going to surround them with some good role players. And I thought Philly coming into the offseason should have looked at that and said, we have Maxey and Embiid, which is great. You want the point guard center star combo. It's one of the better star duos besides maybe 2 big wings. We can surround them with good 3-and-D players. Like, KCP was available. Derek Jones was available. And instead they pushed all their chips into Paul George, who has been okay, but you're paying him so much money where you could have spread that production around multiple people, and it would have really taken the load off guys like Kelly Oubre when Embiid and Paul George doesn't play. So it's kind of just, I don't know. I didn't like their offseason.
It's also like, it's kind of difficult, because looking at being a little sympathetic, playing a little devil's advocate for the Sixers, there weren't that many of those archetypes available.
No, you got like KCP.
Outwardly. It's like KCP.
Derek Jones Jr.
And like
was
you
there.
said, Derek Jones Jr. Yeah.
Harrison Barnes might have been there.
Yeah, but I mean, Harrison Barnes has looked bad. Buddy healed, but that in hindsight, like he looks great. Maybe he doesn't look great in Philly.
Right. I think he was on Philly.
So was he? Maybe like a long time ago, because he was on the Kings for a long time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Either way, it just kind of seems like they kind of maybe panicked. I don't really know. It's a very Morey thing to do, though, to go all in on this aging star. He loves his aging stars. And it goes to show how tough of a season they're having, and that they have the pretty much number 1 run away with it Rookie of the Year contender at the moment, and they're 2-11 and don't look like they really have any path to turning it around. It has people talking about, do you want to tank to keep your pick this year because it's top 7 protected? Like, that is dire.
Yeah, you can't really, like, you're gonna waste another year of Embiid. You're gonna waste the first year of Paul George, which, like, you signed Paul George to this huge contract, and you're really, I remember everyone was talking about, like, you're really doing this for the first 2 years, so you're gonna waste the first year. I don't know.
Embiid and Paul George are both under contract until 2029, where Paul George will be 39 and Embiid will be 34, 35. And the way Embiid's
I'm
playing,
sure we'll see it
makes this level of play
before that happens, unless he is still the MVP contender that he has been the last couple of years, but I don't really see that happening.
And then on the complete other side, he does start slow.
Yeah, same with like Luka. On the other side of things, we have two teams who I wasn't expecting to be this good this early. That's the Golden State Warriors, and it's the Cleveland Cavaliers. But
Yep.
I will say, and I want to talk about the Cavs because they just lost the game against Boston. And pretty much the three things that I was like, man, I'm really like, I know they're 15-0, but I'm really concerned with this. Is their guards are too small. Darius Garland does not show up in big games,
Yeah.
and they can't defend the three. And all those things happened in that game.
Yep. But the encouraging thing is also like the Celtics did exploit all their weaknesses, and the Cavs still almost won. So it's
exactly,
like coming from that aspect, it's like, okay, there's encouraging things to be taken from.
I still
but
think
also
this is the
like
second best team in the East right now.
I agree. But also at the same time, they're looking at this and going, well, this is what's happened to us the last however many times we've matched up against this Boston team. We just can't figure this out. Which a bit of that is like, you could tell Boston really wanted to make a statement that game, and they came out playing like, we are going to win this game. And to the Cavs' credit, they stuck around and fought and almost fought their way back in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the Celtics really, you could tell they wanted to flex their championship status and be like, we are the contenders. This is a fake 15-0 record, that type of thing. You know?
Yeah, and you can make an argument. Yes, the Cavs were missing Isaac Okoro, who has been one of the better defensive players in the league this year. But I think the Cavs will probably. I know that the thing the commentator made it really funny. But I think the Cavs, like, we might actually see a trade come up for them. I don't know who that is because we haven't really seen something available, but probably like a wing defender. If Isaac Okoro either falls off or he's not shooting as well as they would like.
Yeah, to explain the Okoro thing, the announcer last night, we were watching, Tatum had like an amazing drive, dunk, something. He was playing super well. And the announcer goes, if you're wondering why Tatum's having such a good game, Okoro's been out, so, he's not there to slow him down.
In Okoro's defense, he has been one of the best wing defenders in the league this year. And he's shooting 44% from three, which I didn't know.
It was just funny to hear them say, like, basically act like, if Okoro was here, Tatum would be doing this. It's like, I don't know, man. Tatum does this to a lot of people.
Yeah, he did this to Alex. So, can we do a game real quick? I was going to talk about the Warriors, but I'll talk about them real quick. Wiggins back to being an all-defensive player for some reason and scoring. Buddy Hield is just Klay Thompson, and Draymond is competing for Defensive Player of the Year, which is nuts. They're like back. Everyone who we thought was washed is not washed anymore, and it doesn't make sense. This team just continues to come back.
Everyone's talking about Wemby, talking about Chet. You can't forget about Dre.
You can't forget about Dre.
Yeah, the Warriors have been very surprising to me. I'm curious to see if they can keep this up all year, or if this is like, we've kind of seen this from the Warriors. Well, they'll have stretches of like intense heat where they look like they're back to the contending status, and then it's like something will happen, usually like an injury or something that throws them off the rhythm, and then it kind of falls apart. But we also saw it in 2022 where they just rode that straight to a championship. So, it's still this team that won 4 championships, so we do have to worry about them.
Yeah, when you have Steph Curry...
12 games in.
Yeah, 12 games in, which is going to lead me to my game that I have. But, when you have Steph Curry, I think you're pretty much always a contender if you have the good team around them. But my game is... let's pick out the 2022 Washington Wizards. So, if you guys don't remember, the 22 Wizards went 10-3 to start the year. Montrezl Harrell was in MVP conversations, and then obviously they missed the playoffs. So we have a couple of contenders. I'm basically doing every team that's like 9 wins and up. So that's Cleveland, that's Boston, Orlando, Warriors, Thunder, Lakers, Rockets, Phoenix Suns. Are there any of those teams that you think are going to have a... It doesn't even have to be a Wizards type collapse where they just missed the playoffs, but they think they're a lot worse than the record.
Yeah, I don't want to because I don't think anybody's the Wizards where it's 12-3 and then they don't make the playoffs.
No.
Because that was just such a weird, unique time. But there's some teams where like Cleveland is a bit of that where it doesn't feel like they're 15-1. Like maybe I'm just haven't been watching that many Cleveland games, or I'm just hating a little bit. But it definitely feels like right now they're a firm number 2, but it's like Boston's clearly better. We just saw that. And I feel like there's a lot of teams in the West that also would have their number that they just haven't gotten around to playing yet because the scheduling has them in the East mostly to start. I just feel like they've been benefiting off of a weaker East. in a way that a lot of other Western teams have had, because it's been kind of a weird schedule to start. A lot of West teams have played East, and there's like they have like a 78% win rate against East teams or something insane. But it's like honestly, none of these teams really strike me as the Wizards, except for like I'm gonna go ahead and do the opposite Wizards. I think the Sixers and the Bucks are not nearly as bad as this record says. The Sixers might struggle to make the playoffs just because of the play-in system, and it's hard for them to get top 6 with injury-prone guys. But like the Bucks are already turning it around, and they're like
Bucks are 2 games out of the playoffs.
Always been putting down, like Giannis has been going crazy, and they've been like kind of climbing back. Where on the other side, the Stars just haven't shown up for Philly, and that's why they're down there.
Yeah, the Bucks, I have confidence in them turning it around. I still think they have a lot of holes in their team, but Gary Trent had like a historical bad start to the season. He's not like I would think he's gonna turn it around to even being like league average. In that regard, and then of course you have Giannis and Dame, and those two will eventually carry a team. But then on the other side you have Doc Rivers,
and Darvin Ham,
two
basketball terrorists.
On the West side, I think the Rockets. I don't think they're fake. I think they're. I actually think the Rockets are going to be very good, but I don't know if they're a top 4 team in the West, especially with how good the West is. But now that I'm actually looking at it, this is very possible.
The Rockets were the thing. That's what jumped out to me immediately, and I thought about it, and I was like, I don't really want to disrespect them, because if they're not a 4 team, like they're a top 6 team to me.
I think they actually
especially with how they're
because the
playing.
Wolves have. I think the Wolves can get back up there once Randall starts to gel with that team, but I don't think either of us like the Timberwolves that much. No, Dallas has started the season slow, but Luka will always turn it around. He's always a slow starter. And then you have like the Grizzlies, who are missing a lot of pieces.
Are the Lakers going to be the 3 seed all year? I don't think so.
They might be.
9-4 is kind of crazy. They do look really good.
The Lakers look really good.
But it's like the Lakers and the Warriors are the same thing to me, where they look really good when their old stars are on, and it's like LeBron's getting 30-point triple-doubles.
He did get a 30-point triple-double.
Yeah, he's getting all these triple-doubles, 30-point triple-doubles, and it's like, how long is this all going to work out? It's like everything, you can see the path if everything keeps working, but that's never how the NBA works. Nothing works all year, like all the time.
And it's so close. It's going to be so close this year between the East and the West, besides like the top 2 guys in the East. I'm saying, because you look at like the 12 seed Bucks obviously have 5 wins, the 6 seed Heat have 6, and you're like, oh, it's 15 games in or whatever. But this was the entire year last year. It was that close, especially out West. So I think we're going to see a similar thing, especially with teams like the Nets, the Bulls, and the Hornets, who are seeing the Bucks and Sixers struggle and being like, wait a minute, we could actually make the playoffs.
Yes. And that's also, in a roundabout way, bringing it back, that's actually very good for the Sixers, because that's what, the Wizards, not the Sixers. Ugh. Because that's what I was worried about with, like, when we were starting tanking. I was like, well, we are going to be competing with, Chicago is going to start their tank. Charlotte might retank for a little bit. Like, all these guys might compete with us, but now they're looking at a weak East and going, oh, we can win. Like Detroit, Charlotte, all these teams that would,
Well, Detroit shouldn't be tanking.
With us or trying.
Detroit should not be taking at this point.
No. And they're not. They look very good. I like Detroit a lot this year. But it kind of goes back to my point earlier. We're one of the only tanking teams. So we should have the worst record in the NBA, ideally. That's why I don't mind all these losses. Like, that's what we want,
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about having the worst record, and it's good to have the worst record, because even if they fall to 5, it's still pretty good, because this draft class is supposed to be pretty good, at least on the top. But hopefully they don't fall to 5. That would not be great.
No, but I think it would be okay. Like, this year has shown me this. These guys know what they're doing. I would like to get Cooper Flag, of course. I would like to get Dylan Harper, of course. But if we end up with the 5th pick and get somebody who maybe people don't quite know as much, but it's our guy, the guy our GMs wanted. I trust that they'll pick well.
Yeah, I agree. That could probably wrap up the episode, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Pretty good video.
Thanks for watching, guys. Watching along our first video component. We're going to be back next Wednesday, probably. Right before that next game on Wednesday, we'll have 3 games to talk about, cover a bit of the in-season tournament stuff, see who's kind of sticking around. But yeah, finally heading into the meat of the NBA season. Things are starting to pick up.
Super excited. And with that, Gafford's still going to take us out.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy DG. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Nothing major. We hitting the wizard bed tonight, baby. Let's get it, Gafford out.